Mads, you've made a very significant change in your life, and now coming out the other side in a lot of ways. What would you like people to know about that story?
Wow. I feel like I've struggled, of course, with mental health and drinking, and that's kind of what we'll get into. But what I want to lead with is that I feel like I always, drank and like partied and did things that I don't know, like normal teenagers did. And so to me, it's just unbelievable like how quick it can change from this like fun, normal social thing to this dark, scary, now I'm using this thing to like cope with really hard things in my life, and just how quick that can happen. And so, like a lot of people during 2020, I lived alone and lived in a city away from my people. I definitely had people there, but not like your true core support system who really knows you. And I had never in my entire life had that much time alone with my own thoughts. And it's funny because when I think back to growing up, that's kind of always been a theme. I can always remember my mom saying, like, you just always have to be around people. And I was the kid that was like having sleepovers every single weekend. And, what that meant to my parents and to people is like, oh, here's this extremely social, outgoing, has so many friends kid, which was true. But at the same time, I have many memories of it being a little spooky when I would be alone. And so now the world has shut down and I'm quite literally forced to be by myself. And at that time too, it was a thing to just drink alone. Everyone was doing it. I was having like Zoom parties and like work happy hours. Like we're quite literally normalizing drinking alone at home. And for a lot of people, that was fine, right? Like they could stop. I could not. And that got dark very quickly. And I think so much of that is just the perfect mix of mental health, unresolved trauma and life. And it was like putting gasoline on a fire. So I started, drinking a lot by myself. And I mean, that wasn't new. Like I've always been a drinker. And I mean, it was like my identity. Like I'm kind of curious, like what, if you think of me, say in like university, like is that who I was?
No. It was a part of you, but when I think of you from university, that's absolutely not the first thing I think of.
And I feel like that's what is so interesting is the perception that I now have. It's like I kind of now look at my life of like pre and post drinking and have these ideas in my head of what and how people saw me.
It's obviously been such a big part of your story in hindsight, but I don't know, like you said at the beginning, right? Like at first you were just a kid doing fun things that you thought were fun at the time until it spiraled out of control. But then looking back now with the context that you have, it's almost like, oh, that's where it all started going wrong. So you're like demonizing that version of you and bringing like her entire story was just the alcohol, because you're now limiting your entire identity and story into before and after. So the before was entirely surrounded on alcohol the way that you framed it.
1000%. Like truly, you can always do this. I'm like, I just say something and you're like, this is how and why. And I'm like, okay, Yeah. Oh my God. I could not come to that myself. But that is exactly what it is. And so, I mean, everyone knows like drinking does not make you feel well. You have anxiety and you feel awful and you make stupid decisions. And when you're also now dealing with panic attacks and anxiety and depression, it's like this awful, vicious cycle of I want to stop doing this because I logically know it makes me feel awful and I don't even like who I am when I'm drinking. But at the same time, it's like that comfort of, but when I do it, like I feel good in the moment. And I always talk about this because you only really remember the good feelings. Like when you've only had like one drink and it like you start feeling a little good, it's like your brain forgets the actual 5 hours where you like don't know where you are and you're making horrible decisions and you're sick in the bathroom or screaming and fighting with someone. It's like your brain purposely allows you to forget that so you keep drinking. That's how I feel. And like truly before I knew it, I was so depressed. Like I always thought that I understood mental health, and I've had, close friends and people in my life who have like really struggled, and I've always thought that I understood them. I did not. I truly had no idea like this level of darkness existed because there's this thing that I keep doing that I know I want to stop, but I can't. I just thought I was like a party girl. I thought that was fun. And it, to me, was so much of my identity. Like, that is how I felt like I made friends. That's how I felt like I connected with people. I did not realize that I was actually doing it to numb feelings that just felt too big to deal with.
But I also think that is not entirely on you because collectively, like that's especially, I don't know, North America, but I lied. Everywhere.
Truly.
That is almost like a rite of passage.
I mean, we use it to mourn. We use it to celebrate. We use it like in so many ways. It's so ingrained in our culture. It's like, oh, you got a new job? Let's pop some champagne. Oh, you're going through a breakup? I'm going to come over with wine and ice cream. Like, it's so ingrained that it feels like I'm like I failed at it. It feels like everyone can do this thing and I failed and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is honestly what made it even harder because it's like I can't, like everyone else can do it. It was embarrassing. It was shameful. And I think one thing I really want to say is addiction has been looked at as like this very black and white thing and box. And I think because of that, there's a lot of people who are struggling who can't see themselves in that black and white box. And what I'm saying is I wasn't arrested. I didn't lose my job. Like in what we would say, like someone, living not a perfect life, but everything looked well. Like I had an amazing boyfriend, lived in this beautiful condo and had a job that I loved. And so it's like, there's nothing wrong with me. And I didn't want anyone to know. Like that was so, it felt very shameful. And it honestly, I think once I realized like, no, like I have a problem here. Like I'm like itching at the end of the workday to just like have a drink. And then I would start setting parameters like, okay, well, I won't drink liquor anymore and I'll only drink beer. And then it was, okay, and I'll only drink on the weekends. And it's like once you start putting those parameters around you for someone who like does have a problem, it's just never going to work. And it just created this vicious shame cycle of, oh my God, like I feel like this thing is killing me, because that is how much I was struggling mentally. Like, I did not see joy anymore. And I feel like I was always such an outgoing, optimistic person. And like, it felt like the light was turned off. Like it was taken out of me. And sorry, it's like, it's always so like crazy to go back there, because I don't recognize that person anymore. And it's not often that like I'm sitting down, like putting myself back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much of that has to do with, it's just, okay, you know what, just move forward. It's so much easier to like not think about it. And that was me then, and this is me now type of complex, which I don't think is healthy. I'm the same person.
And there was so much more, like we just said, there was so much more to you.
Yeah.
At that time also. Right?
Yeah.
So looking back at it as, like, obviously it's always hard to revisit, but narrowing it down to that was the only thing about you, or that made you who you were at that time. That's not all there was. It almost sounded like there was the vicious cycle, and you already felt shameful in the first place of, okay, I can't do this thing. And it almost started the downward spiral when you're creating these parameters of like, okay, well, I can probably do it in this scenario. And when you didn't, it's like, oh no, I couldn't even do that. So it just like kept going and going and going. But I think the whole time, regardless, there was the girl in there that saw it and was trying the whole time as well. And I think that arguably that version of you is stronger in a lot of ways than maybe you are today, because that's the version of you that was very, very much struggling, that is hard to revisit, because it's hard to kind of see her and go, oh crap, but it's like she's the one that took the first step, right?
It's so true.
Yeah, like your kind of baseline coping mechanisms now, they're healthier. When you hit another hard round this time around with experience, I don't want to speak for you, but
no,
it's almost not as hard.
Yeah.
Because you have this foundation of, oh, I know what to do now. Whereas before, she had no idea and still was taking steps forward.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Again, you nailed it. To also just like, I guess, kind of help with context as well. Like, I'll share a little bit, but it was not just drinking. Like, I think that's just helpful for people to know, because like we definitely have normalized party drugs, and I do feel like very passionate about that normalization and how quickly something that's like fun and I'm in my 20s can turn really dark. And, you know, mixing alcohol with other substances is so dangerous. And I had read some stats. If you are struggling with your mental health, like, you are 7 times more likely to have self-harm or have like suicidal thoughts, and that increases by like 14 times when mixing it with substances. And so I just really want people to know that, because it's super glamorized. And by looking at me, like, you would have never known that that was going on. And so I hope that there's like even just one person out there that knows, like, you are not alone. There are so many people who are struggling behind the scenes. And I can tell you that for a fact, because you open up Instagram and you open up TikTok and it looks like, oh, everyone has just nailed this drinking thing. It's like sophisticated and sexy, and they're out having espresso martinis. But that's all you see. And trust me, I was the biggest fraud, okay? I looked like I was having the time of my life. What you didn't see was the debilitating panic attacks. I had gone to the hospital, I think like maybe 4 or 5 times. because of self-harm. And it really got to a place where like I was terrified that while I was drunk, I was going to do something that would be irreversible. And I think like the feelings and like the conversations that I had in my head, and it was kind of like the devil and angel on my shoulder, there was like this one side of me that was saying, you're not doing anything wrong. This is what everyone does at this age. Like you'll get a grip on it. And then there's this other side of me that was like, no, this is going to lead you down a path of a life that you are not meant for. Like, I do feel grateful that I had this deep inner knowing that this is not the way my life's supposed to look.
In any sort of stressful scenario like that, right? Like, I think it is really hard to distinguish between anxiety or that devil on your shoulder versus your true self or that inner knowing. So how were you able to differentiate? What did that feel like for you? How did you know which kind of was what really you were being pulled towards?
Yeah. Honestly, and I know some people hate to see this. I hate when everyone says this. It's like, just journal. But journaling through all of that is, I honestly believe, like what saved me and what helped me actually understand like what these feelings were and what the difference was, what was anxiety, what was fear. Like so much of it was fear-based, because now my head's just going, you can't have a problem because then you'll never be able to drink again. And then if you never drink again, like, how are you going to get married? Like that.
Because it's like, how do you have a wedding? Open bar? Like,
yes.
Okay.
That is literally where your head goes. It's like, it sounds so extreme, but it's like this really big life decision is what it felt like. Like, am I strong enough to do this? And I journaled every single night, and I still have them. And it was seeing it like written down on paper, right? Because you can get so lost in your own head. And I have ADHD, and so there's a lot of thoughts happening in my head. And so, like, how do I know which one is, I don't want to say the right one, but like, which one is true?
The truer one. Yeah.
And with, like, I had to see it written down. So I would journal while I'm like hungover and I feel awful, which was like the best time to do it, because like I said, your body kind of forgets. Like once you start feeling good, it's like, it wasn't that bad, right? But I actually had the proof. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It was like the proof of, this is how you feel when you do this thing. And it's causing you to make decisions that do not support who who you are deep in your soul. But it took like seeing it written down for it to make sense, I guess, to me.
And once you saw all of that in front of you, how did you know when it was time to actually start taking a first step or going down the path towards making a change?
Yeah. This I feel super passionate about, because I think a lot of times in life we wait to make a change, or honestly wait to ask for help until we are SOS mode. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because to be quite honest, yes, I had to like admit to myself that something is wrong here. But at the same time, like, I feel like I let it get to a place where there was no other option. Like, you need help. And so what I love is that I actually leaned on both therapy and life coaching. And for me, the reason why that was so helpful was because in therapy, we needed to get to like the root cause, the why are you doing this? What are the thoughts and feelings? Like, what the hell happened to you where like this is the only way that you know how to cope is drinking until you can't feel anything. And so that was so helpful because I couldn't move forward without unpacking that like stuff from the past. And then I found life coaching, and this was helping me envision who I wanted to be, I guess. Like, yeah, how do you see yourself, right? Like, or imagine in like 3 years and you're so happy and you're filled with joy. Like, okay, what does that look like? Who are you with? What's your job? And so I needed that balance because I needed both. And we talked about it a little bit. I think what's so interesting now is that almost felt easier.
What part of it?
When I was struggling so much, like I had to get help. I had to do something. And so it was like simple. It was like, don't drink, sleep enough, eat, go outside, because that got hard. And that was it. It was like, okay, this I can do.
The steps were clear. It's like once you're in SOS mode, you kind of know. It's like we said, you turn into a little baby. Eat, sleep, go outside.
There's a term called HALT.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's like just used in sobriety. Anyways, it's hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And those are like triggers.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'd be like, all I want is to have a drink and my life sucks, blah, 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 I think of HALT. 10 out of 10 times, I was hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So
that's so perfect because it almost validates like, oh, I'm not crazy. I actually am just a being that needs some care right now. And those steps are very clear. And then once you heal from that space where you're like, okay, I have navigated how I got here. I understand how I got here. And in order to even go to those really dark places and those deep places, you almost need a why am I doing this and what for? Life coaching kind of helps with, okay, I have a future I'm working towards again.
yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, if I'm doing all of this and I'm just in this spiral and I'm not really sure where I'm headed, you need a why to be there because it's so hard to be there. Doing it in tandem offers you, okay, I kind of have a vision with where I could be if I stick with this. And it's almost a why for sticking with it.
1000%. Because like I said, I had this like deep knowing that this ain't it. Like you were meant to do a lot more than whatever this is, but I didn't know what. And like, who knows? Like, I don't know. I just knew it like deep down that this wasn't it. And so that helped me to actually figure out what that looks like, because you do need something bigger like than yourself to make changes.
What did navigating that beginning shift of it's not this, but I'm not quite sure what the next thing is yet look like?
Yeah, that's such a good question because obviously everything is hindsight 2020. And so sometimes I do think, do I only see it this way now because I'm out of it? And I mean, if you've struggled with drinking and mental health, like, you know what I mean when that's a blur. Like, that time of my life is sometimes really hard to remember. And so I think that sometimes I'm like, how did I know? And yeah, I don't know.
why don't, that's that piece of you that you're kind of struggling with right now,
Yeah.
like that younger self that was kind of in that space, like what would she say? Like ask her.
Yeah, that will do it. No, I think like the way that you asked that, it just reframes it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, without that question, I'm just like, okay, I'm like trying to think, you know, how did I feel? But something that always resonates with me is thinking back to like my younger self. And when you said that, I didn't even really go back to like who I was then, which now I'm 4+ years sober. So I was like mid-20s. I actually like flash back to like little me. And I actually think that's what it was.
What?
If I think at that time, I think I thought a lot about who I was as a kid.
Why?
I think for 2 reasons. I think one, which I know now is not the case, but this is true to me. I think she would have been like a little bit disappointed. I don't know. I maybe was doing it a bit to like fit in. I wasn't like true to myself. I like lost myself. And so I think I thought at the time, like, I've always been like such a big dreamer. Like, I'm so lucky that I've always been someone from a young age that's like, anything is possible. And then that was gone, like completely gone. Like, now I am white knuckling life, like making sure I'm not one drunk decision away from an
Irreversible.
words are hard. Yeah, so I just think she would have just been sad, and that made me sad to think that I was not doing like my younger self proud. Did I answer your question?
I think so. Like, yeah. Because
I'm always just like,
I'm
gonna talk, Becca. You tell me what. Like, I'm a blabbermouth. Okay, I'm gonna yap. You conceptualize.
Because I had asked you, kind of at that beginning stage of, I know I want more, but I don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. And I asked you to ask a younger version of yourself that. And I think in saying that, it sounds like your mid-20-year-old self, by being really close with that inner child dynamic and looking at, oh no, I could be disappointing her. It almost sounds like that gave you the courage and the fire to take a step forward without kind of knowing what that next step was.
Yeah.
Or maybe what the next step is. Sorry, you did know what the next step was. You went back to therapy and you started doing a lot of the work of caring for her, for caring for that inner child, to kind of make the space for what could come next, is what it sounds like.
It's so crazy. My eyes started tearing up because as you were saying I completely forgot. Like, you actually just unlocked something. I wrote a letter to myself from my younger self through all of this.
That's why it came up in your head.
That's why it came up. Mm-hmm. I completely forgot that I did that.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, because I was just journaling and God knows how I got there, but I was obviously thinking about like who I was as a kid. And honestly, no, how I got there was probably me trying to figure out how I got here right now. Like, what happened? Not what happened, but like, why? Right? Yeah. Like, why am I like this? Why do I feel this need to like numb everything inside of me? I think you nailed it. That was the moment. It was the feeling of what would like little Mads think. And I was like, first of all, she would think you're very cool. Kind of crazy, but cool. And she would not want you to be in bed, isolating yourself, not seeing anyone. She's like, girl, we had so many friends. You love being around people. Like, you want to bring light and joy into this world. And so we got some work to do. And I feel like, especially from life coaching, like, of course, I learned amazing tools and, like, coping mechanisms from therapy. But again, like, I needed something future oriented. Like, I needed, what can I do right now? And a little less unpacking what previously happened. Like, we've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And before, what I was getting at is, like, how that, like, early sobriety, figuring out my mental health, making sure I was, like, not a harm to myself, like, that felt, in hindsight, easy because the steps were so clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, like, today, presently, I talk a lot about, like, still struggling. And I think sometimes my brain has a really hard time with that because there's this part of me that's like, this isn't struggling. You know struggling. You're not going into the hospital at 2 a.m. anymore. Like, your biggest fear in the world is dying. When at some point I, like, didn't even know how I could live another day. And so it's like this really weird place of, like, I'm good. Because in my head, good means not drinking, not hating myself, being excited about the future, having joy in the world. So, like, what is this? You know, what is this feeling? Because this one I don't know. That, like, weird in between.
It's almost like you've told yourself you're not allowed to struggle. Because you have.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
You're no longer allowed. You've done it.
My
so
stick.
That's what yeah.
Say that again.
It's like, well, now that you've struggled so much, because you've done, like, one of the deepest struggles anyone could probably face, one of them, right? It's like, okay, well, now that's struggling. This is not. You're not allowed to struggle anymore. You figured it out. There's variations to struggle.
That is exactly what it is. Of course. It's like, then you say it and it's like, of course there is levels to struggling.
Yeah.
But I think people can relate to, like, and I know you can relate to this. Like, if you are someone who has experienced, like, the depths of darkness of depression and anxiety, you don't give yourself as much grace when, I don't want to say when the feelings aren't as big. It's actually more like just when the stakes aren't as high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
The feelings are still very big, but it's like,
it's the stakes.
I don't know. There's, like, a little voice that's like, okay, come on, girl. Like, you've
Yes.
had worse. Like, it's not
Yeah.
this, relax.
Well, because
But then it just makes you white knuckle harder because you're not willing to accept that you're struggling, and then it puts you back at risk of going back in that space because you're not giving yourself the time to rest. It's like, okay, well, I've done the healing. I should have figured it out by now. And so this isn't struggle. I need to keep going. I can keep going now. I've proved I can keep going now, so I don't need rest.
I just want to say, like, I'm so lucky you're my best friend. Because anytime I leave hanging out with you, I'm like, I gotta write this down. Like, I have to write this down. That is exactly what it is. And it's like, I could go back there.
That's the thing, is once your brain's been there, no matter how illogical it is, your brain always thinks that it is a viable option when it very obviously is not.
Yeah.
But once those neural pathways are there, they're there. And that's the track that you've been running for so long. And so under periods of stress, your brain will resort back to what is most familiar. And if you haven't really put in the work for a number of years, then it's really easy to slip back there. And I think the farther away that you get from it, it is a little bit easier because you've ingrained more things.
Yes.
But it's still there.
Totally. And I explain that a lot, how, like, the further and further I get away from it, there's this part of me that almost feels like it could be not easier to go back, but it's like you kind of start to forget.
You distance.
Exactly. And so what you said right before this, the reason why that resonated so much with me is because I won't like let myself kind of like notice those signs because I'm like, you're not struggling. But in reality, it's like then I can look back and like, quite honestly, like the past 3 months, like this is happening now. I'm like, okay, I've not gone to the gym in 3 months. I'm not super keen on hanging out with people. Like, those are little signs of you're not feeling the best.
They're warning signs. And I think what you said way before, when I think I had asked, like, how did you know it was time to make that change? And you started this whole thing with being like, I thought I was just the party girl. It was not a problem, not a problem, not a problem. Like, it was little things until it wasn't. And so I think now, again, that you feel like the stakes aren't as high, but it's almost the same situation where if you keep ignoring those little signs, all of a sudden it's going to not be. And then in hindsight, you're going to go, damn, like I should have paid attention sooner.
Yes.
And so I think that's why it's so important to just practice, like it's going to sound cheesy, like mindfulness or just awareness of how you are, even when you're doing well, like doing consistent little check-ins with yourself and really taking seriously, okay, am I feeling like I need care today? Even if you're just having an off day and you feel like it's not a big deal, it's very important to not end up getting to a space, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like I always say this, like, don't wait until the SOS red panic to like work on yourself and find new tools and even just like improve how you deal with a bad day or stress. Like, I feel like it's so easy to get into the mindset of I'm fine. So then what you said, you just ignore those signs. And I think too with like social media and everything, I do feel like there's this feeling of you're either like struggling or you've like crossed the finish line. And I think that's what I've struggled with because I'm like, and again, probably being like a very extreme person, but I'm like, okay, where's my medal? Did I cross the finish line? Like, we can do hard things. I did the hard thing. And, you know, where's like the applause? I made it. I'm good now.
But I think that's the issue of, you know, yay!
It's my applause!
I hope the mic picks that up. There's people screaming and cheering. You made it.
I asked the universe.
And it delivered. That's actually crazy. I'm crying. Okay, you began touching on earlier a little bit of the kind of odd no man's land that happens once you're out of SOS space. Mm-hmm. Once, okay, I've healed enough that I'm in this place or done enough therapy that I'm now in this place of, okay, I understand how I got here and who I was, but now who can I be? Who am I now? I feel like a lot of change begins to happen for people with just this subtle feeling that something's not quite right. And you almost start getting itchy.
Yep.
And this is good, this is fine, but I feel like I'm meant for more or I'm meant for something different. And that's really overwhelming, especially when we've said, once you've navigated, especially if you're someone who's navigated so much, it's like, okay, this is the part where I'm just supposed to be happy with what I have, like I've done the thing. But no, there's so many different ways that you can go from there. And that's almost the harder part because the steps aren't as clear. So I guess tell me a little bit about when that started for you, post stepping into sobriety.
Yeah. I know. Honestly, there's just so much there because I think in life, we hold so much in like who our identity is. Who are we? Who am I? Right? And so, yeah, when you do something like sobriety, massive identity crisis. But then what has been the hardest is I get sober, I do a bunch of work on myself, I feel like I know who I am, and then for me now 4 years kind of after that, I'm almost back at like, wait, who am I? And having again almost those same feelings, like, is this the life I want to live? What do I want to do in the world? And so I have a question for you. Are we holding too much in the thought of an identity? Like, why, like, I'm constantly searching for this, like, who am I? Are we holding too much weight in that? Is that a final destination? Because to me, it's like the reason why I then get so lost is because that's always going to change. Who you are will always change.
Okay, I'm not a philosopher. Life
But
coach.
to me, you are.
Okay, so when I was in my space, similar to yours, where I was doing the therapy and the coaching thing, I was at the very beginning of coming out of a really big season of struggle myself in my early 20s. I started a coaching program and we had to introduce, it was like an icebreaker. The question was, it was some variation of, who am I? Okay. And I literally wrote in my journal, because you were allowed to like write in your journal and then you would come to like the class with it.
Mm.
I wrote this really, really like philosophical response that was like, I don't know. Am I my values? Those will change. Am I things I like? That will change. Like I was having a really hard time nailing down like who I am, because I know, you knew even back then, it's really hard to do. And I was like, yeah, I'm in flux. I'm like a human. I'm here to be like, I don't know. I don't know what I am. I just felt like so embarrassed because everyone gives the typical, like, this is what I do for work. This is what I do for fun. This is a picture of who I am. And I went, oh my God. And I panicked. I took this so much deeper than everyone.
Like,
I literally could have been like,
who am I?
I was like, huh.
Most Becca thing ever. But I'm so obsessed. That is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So I've struggled with that for a really long time. I think the reason why we're so focused with trying to package ourselves into boxes is because like we're like tribal beings.
Yeah.
We're looking for what community we're going to fit into.
Yes.
And so for us to know and for us to relate to people, we kind of go, okay, where's my box? And so we're so obsessed, especially in a time with social media where it's like you have this one-liner bio that's what you get to describe yourself. What's your niche? Even if you're not trying to be a content creator, you still are like, okay, dog mom of whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
you
like you're still, it's still like you have a page where it's like, this is who I am, and it will never ever encapsulate all of the things that you are, because you will always contain multitudes. And I think the issue is that we're trying to see ourselves and pin ourselves down, and we're so focused on what that looks like to other people inward that we're not focused on just being and expressing that outward. And that is what's ultimately going to bring people in. It's like we're too concerned with seeing ourselves instead of just being ourselves. And so I hope that answers your question on just the weight that we're holding with identity. It's hold it less. It's know yourself, but stop trying to see yourself.
Oh my God. You nailed it in that last part of so much of it is actually not even knowing my identity. So I know it. So I know myself. And I think it's way more weighted in what is my identity to try to figure out how other people see me. And I feel like this conversation is so interesting for me because for some reason I've always held so much in identity. Like
That's very natural. Everybody does that.
Yeah. Which is why I asked you, like, that question, like, the why? And you answered it perfectly.
Community, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
But it's...
I would say in all of the science-y things, even that I know, I would aim to guess.
Yeah.
That is...
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, that makes sense to me because we, as humans, innately want to connect with people. And so you do that by finding commonalities and relating to people. And we do that through our hobbies and, like, how we see ourselves.
It's also where we lose ourselves.
Yeah.
Because...
Massively.
Because when you're trying to fit in and you're younger and you're not quite sure who you are, right? At some point. And then all these different societal pressures and external noise comes in from, like, your family or school and there are studies on this of kind of when each social group is most prominent in your life. Like when you're in elementary school, it becomes your peers. Like at first it's your family of origin and then it goes to peers and then it goes to coworkers. Like it just kind of naturally progresses throughout your life. Media is always in it, depending on how early you're introduced to, and I mean, it's earlier and earlier with phones in everybody's hands. But so I think, and maybe that's it too, we're struggling to find exactly who we are in it all because it's so easy to lose yourself in all of those voices around you telling you who you should be to fit in. And because our main task as successful human beings in our, like, primal brain is to belong to the group.
Yes. This perfectly goes back to me sharing my story here because now, looking back, that has everything to do with how I got here. Because I feel like who I am today, I am, I don't know, so much more, like, quirky, and I'm a social being for sure, but I would way rather be one-on-one with someone than in a big group. And so that is so different to who I was as a kid. Like, to fit in, it felt like that was the identity that I needed to have to fit in. And success as, like, a young person looks like having a lot of friends, being invited to all the cool things. So what do you do to do that? Was have a lot of friends, drink, be this loud, obnoxious person, when in reality, I'm way more of a homebody, would way rather be with someone one-on-one than, like, a party now is, like, legit my worst nightmare. Like, that's jail to me. I don't want to be in a room with a bunch of people I don't know. And so all of that has to do with identity and fitting in. And so that's probably why now I'm kind of in that same place of, like, trying to figure out who I am and where I fit in. And that's why, like, having these conversations with you and why I'm, like, so grateful to have you in my life is because you help me understand that. Like, you literally just did that right now because I hold so much in what my identity is, but you just completely reframed it. It's not set in stone. It's almost like I'm searching for this thing that we're going to, like, print and I'm going to put up on the wall and, like, that's what it has to be forever. And so I think I need to look at it a little bit differently. It's so much more complex. What are my values? What drives me? What brings me joy in life? Like, that's what makes you a human.
Like you just said, right? It's knowing yourself. It's the internal driver. It's the, okay, I know that thing. And so going out and being curious and getting into all of these different spaces and trying things out, there is no harm in doing that because all that is collecting information, and it's almost like revealing yourself in a mirror. Like, you wouldn't know if you're interested in something without trying it or without seeing it somewhere on social media, or, like, it is how you connect with the world. So I don't want to diminish or say, like, no, shut the world out to find who you are. It's not how you find it a lot of the time. No. It's going out and seeing what the interplay is, not blindly taking it on, but going out somewhere and being very aware of how it's impacting you and what emotions you're having while you do it. Because at the time, right, with all of the drinking and the partying you were doing at that time, you probably weren't conscious a lot of the time of like, I actually hate it here. At the time, you were just, I'm being accepted. There's people around me, and your inner experience you weren't paying attention to.
Oh, yeah. This is all in hindsight. I 1000% zero deep thoughts of, oh, I'm doing this to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
This is only something I came to now. But that is why this type of work is so important, because I feel like if not, you do just kind of like blindly float through life and you don't like pause to really know, like, why am I here? What are the things that I like to do? I can see now how kind of maybe where I'm at right now, you can fall back into, like, I'm going to look back at this in 10 years and have another crazy hindsight's 2020 of who I was and why I'm doing the things I am today. Like, there's another, probably deep reason of why I do the things I do, trying to kind of figure out who I am in this world. And because everything is hindsight is 2020, it's like these conversations that are so helpful that can bring me like back into like the present moment. And I feel like sometimes you need someone to ask you questions. And like that's, I hope of, like, of course, yeah, you do it in coaching. There's so many different ways that you can do that. But I also hope everyone has like friends and people in their lives that you can have these types of conversations with. Because I figure out so much of who I am by the way I like talk and interact and have these conversations with specifically like people like you.
You kind of have to get in the world and interact with the world to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot that can come from alone time and come from introspection and asking yourself these questions, but then it's almost like you can only heal so much on your own before you have to go put it into practice.
Yes.
And see how it actually goes, because you don't want to be asking yourself these questions all the time. It's like, there's like a cycle to change, and Martha Beck talks about this a lot. Like, this is kind of her whole thing that I really love, is that there's 4 kind of stages that you can be in terms of change. And the first one is you kind of get that itchy feeling where you kind of know, oh no, something's going to happen, or something in your external environment triggers it. So it's like something happens, you get a promotion, or you get married, or you lose a parent, or you lose, like, you can either gain or lose, it doesn't matter. It could be positive or negative change, but regardless, whatever happens, there will be some sort of identity shift in that. And then there's a couple different squares. I won't get like totally into it, but the 4th square, when you kind of come out of it, like, it's this process of change that happens all the time throughout your life. You're kind of just circling these 4 quadrants. And the 4th one she calls like the promised land, which you get to that point where you figured it out enough for now you're good.
Yeah.
Right? She says to stay in that for as long as possible, because that's kind of where you're not really focused on the self-improvement stuff anymore. It's just, you're just living as you should be. It's just, okay, I'm going to be this version of myself for now, really experience this version of myself. And that is kind of where a lot of the actual living happens. And then until something happens, and then the first quadrant is kicked off again. And then you're sent down this whole thing. And then you kind of forget how it was being in it. So you kind of have to go through the stages of the grief, the figuring out, the whatever, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like after sobriety, like the beginnings of sobriety, where it was kind of a whole new world to you, and like, I'm healed, you would have been in square 4, and you would have been like, oh wow, this is so great, I'm healed, I can be here forever. And then, like you said, now you're kind of back in this space where you're like, well, is this really what I want to be doing? Because you're going to start circling back through that cycle again of trying to figure out who in this stage of your life you're becoming. And I think that at the end of the day, you're like, that's always going to happen until you die. And I think that you would die long before that, spiritually, soulfully, if you just stopped growing and stopped going through those things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, recognizing to not be afraid of it when it comes, or to not panic or avoid when it comes.
That makes so much sense to me, because there's actually almost a part of me that's like, maybe even recently I've been a little bit in the promised land. Like, maybe this is, like, just a soft landing, and I'm always trying to, like, be that self-improvement project where, like, maybe right now this is okay. And I actually think, I think I'm there, and I'm probably soon gonna go into...
Because you're getting itchy.
Yeah. I'm speechless. Something that I'm definitely taking away from this is it's okay to just sit in this unknown. Like, I think we're kind of constantly always trying to, like, figure out exactly, like, where I am in life and where am I going and who am I and what is my identity. Where you say this all the time that I always think about is, like, that's the doing. Like, how, like, I just want to be a human. Like, how do I just sit in being a human? I don't need all of this constant, like, to do and where am I going? And I think a lot of people can probably relate where I, like, conceptualize my thoughts all the time. Why am I feeling this way? What happened today? What triggered it? That's not being. That's not being a human.
There's different seasons for it, right? There's definitely a season for being, but there's definitely a season for doing when that clarity is starting to come or where you're looking for clarity. But I think where people get a little bit mixed up is, well, once I get this clarity and figure it out, that's it forever. That's who, like, I think we're kind of on this endless search to find who we truly are at the core forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's, who am I right now?
I need to journal about that tonight.
And then if you're not sure, okay, who am I right now? That's okay. Either A, sit in that if you're okay with that, but B, if there is something that you're feeling really passionate about or you want to work towards or something's kind of pulling your curiosity, there is a time and place for self-improvement work and for the doing and for the exploring.
Yeah.
But it's just not all the time, because I think that is where we get a little lost in the self-improvement world. And what I see a lot with coaches or wellness business, like it's become like $1 trillion industry now, and it's just a lot of businesses are just capitalizing all the time off of, and I mean that's happened forever actually with beauty companies and makeup companies. Like, it's just people capitalizing off of people's insecurities.
Yes.
And almost like causing the insecurities
yes,
to sell them a thing. We are starting to treat ourselves like machines that we can optimize or improve. Mm-hmm. And sure, time and place.
Yeah.
But once you get to a space where you can recognize, like, oh, okay, I'm okay here for a while, I think that's the goal. And it's also being aware of where that is and where that stop line is. Mm-hmm. Because then you're just going to careen down into burnout.
Yeah.
We understand how to optimize as a culture. We know how to optimize. We know how to self-improve. We know how to adult.
Yeah.
Right? We have this idea of perfect human, of like, get up your 5 to 9 before your 9 to 5 and your cold plunges and all these things. And like, again, those have a place.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to do, like, I'm not shaming that whatsoever, but I think that it's just the overall message that seems to get pushed onto people who it's like not for. And so we know how to adult. We don't necessarily know how to human anymore. We've kind of lost how to human.
That is going to resonate with so many people, because I think that, like, almost answers this question that people have but can't put into words. I think that answers it. It's like,
what question?
The question of, well, I don't even think people know the question. It's just like this feeling of not knowing if, like, I'm doing it right because of everything that you just said, like, especially with wellness. And everything has a product and a person and a thing, like, this is going to help you do this and feel this way, that, like, we've just lost the plot.
Because what you said right there was really big. Like, if I'm doing it right, what's it? Life?
Exactly.
Self-improvement? Like, I think that
exactly
we're being sold an end goal in a lot of ways that we should be going to or have to go to, and there just isn't one.
No.
It's going to be based on you and your individual path. And if you don't, and that's why I said there's seasons, right? Like if you don't take the time to ask yourself these questions and engage in work like this when you're not SOS, when you do have the capacity to explore it, because kind of when you're in those dark places, you can't find joy and you can't.
No.
And a lot of the times it's the joy and the curiosity is where this like inner feeling or your inner knowing connects to. And that's how clues almost show up in your life. It'll be a little hint of interest here, like, oh, that's really interesting. Those are the things to follow, and you can only really do that and end up knowing exactly where you want to go when you have the grander capacity to explore that and to do that. So I think that, yeah, going back to what you said about don't wait until you're SOS to start exploring these things, because when you're in SOS, you can't. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
That's like therapy, that's recovery, that's healing.
Yes.
And then you get to a point where, okay, that's done, but the work isn't necessarily, and I don't even really want to call it work, because it's almost the fun part. It's almost like, okay, it can be very scary and it can be overwhelming. You can have a lot of heavy feelings of, oh no, where do I go next? But it's also where a lot of hope and possibility lives.
Yeah. Honestly, and I wouldn't just say this because you're one of my best friends, but this is why your work is so important. And that's exactly what I meant by like, am I doing it right? It's like, it's a question that people aren't consciously asking themselves, but it's what people feel. And I think like the work that you're going to do and the way that you explain being a human and humaning, it's like answering a question that people are asking but can't actually conceptualize. Like you just say that and that makes sense to me. It's like, that's what it is. You know, it's that feeling of like, yeah, wait, how do I human? And it's just going to start so many conversations, like not just from the people that you work with, but just like these conversations in general. I hope people start to have more. Like we've wellnessed our way through this world and it's too much and we just need to human. And we don't know how. So help us human. If it wasn't, I feel like for a lot of the work that I've done, I probably wouldn't be someone who is now so passionate about living this big and beautiful life and doing things that I maybe never thought I would have. Like, as you know, I've battled with the thought of possibly moving. And that is even hard to come to terms with because it's like, well, I've lived there for 8 years and I love it here. And again, it's like identity. Like I told myself that this is something that I like, so I should stay. But I'm so grateful that I've done the work to not leave it at that. I don't want to be someone who ignores these tiny whispers because I've done that. I've ignored them for nearly my whole life. But now I'm not ignoring those anymore. Like, I know myself and I don't want to wake up one day and be like, damn, I really should have just seen if I would have liked that.
What is your next step, even if small?
The immediate next step for me whenever I feel like this, because it's like a mixture of these inner knowing and whispers with a mixture of feeling super disconnected. And so for me, that immediately means I need to like slow down and get a little bit back in my body. And how I do that is yoga, walking, physically moving my body. A lot of times, honestly, in silence so that I can actually like hear myself. Because like many, I always have noise. Like I'm going on a walk, my AirPods are in. I'm doing my skincare, my iPad's playing a show. Like, and so those are my signs. I need to just sit a little bit in the silence while I move my body so that those whispers feel a little bit more clear.